In a village where gossip traveled faster than mercy, lived a girl named Zainabu, an orphan raised on patience and pain. Her stepmother often said, "You were born to endure, not to ask." Inside Zainabu's heart, a soft voice wondered, "Will my life ever change?" One morning, a decision was spoken like a curse. Marriage, not as joy, not as honor, but as punishment. To Kofi, the woman declared, a blind beggar with empty hands. The village whispered, blind, poor, useless. Zainabu's thoughts trembled. Darkness will follow me forever. But the ancestors hide truth in silence. Kofi was not blind. Kofi was not poor. Wealth surrounded him like unseen drums, meant only for honest hearts. This is a tale of cruelty, hidden fortune, and destiny's sharp turn. Listen well. Some blessings arrive wearing shame. Some futures hide behind suffering. Remain by the fire. Listen.
The elders say that the chick that endures the cold night will one day greet the sun with strong wings. Long ago, in a dusty African compound where gossip traveled faster than the harmattan wind, lived a girl whose life was shaped by silence, endurance, and unseen strength. Her name was Zainabu, and like many stories told under moonlight, hers began before dawn, when the world was quiet but suffering was loud. Before the rooster crowed, Zainabu was already awake. Her small hands moved inside a cracked clay basin, washing plates that never seemed to end. The water was cold, biting her fingers, but she did not complain. Complaints were forbidden in her aunt's house. Since the day fever carried away her parents, Zainabu had lived under the roof of her father's elder brother's wife, Mama Rukayat, a woman whose tongue was sharper than a cutlass and whose kindness had long dried up. "Girl," Mama Rukayat would shout, even when Zainabu stood right beside her, "is this how lazy children wash plates?" The words came daily, like rain in the wet season. Zainabu learned to lower her eyes, to swallow her tears, and to keep working. In that house, silence was safety. She was 15 when she arrived, thin as a reed, clutching the small cloth her mother once wrapped her in. By 19, her back had bent from work meant for grown women. While Mama Rukayat's daughters painted their nails and practiced smiling in mirrors, Zainabu scrubbed floors, fetched water, cooked meals she never tasted, and slept on a mat that whispered of loneliness each night. Yet the elders say the river that runs quietly is often the deepest. Zainabu carried something Mama Rukayat could not see: patience mixed with dignity. Even when hunger gnawed at her stomach, she shared her portion of gari with a neighbor's child. Even when beaten for breaking a plate she did not touch, she still greeted her aunt each morning. One afternoon, as the sun hung heavy in the sky, Mama Rukayat returned from the market with news. Her eyes shone, not with joy, but with calculation. "Zainabu," she said slowly, smiling the smile that never reached her eyes, "a man has come, asking for a wife." Zainabu's heart trembled like a trapped bird. "A wife," she whispered. "Yes," Mama Rukayat replied. "He is not rich. He is not handsome. They say his eyes do not work well, but he is ready to take responsibility, and I am tired of feeding extra mouths." Zainabu fell to her knees. "Mama, please, I want to go to school. Let me learn tailoring. I will help." The slap came before the sentence finished. "School." Mama Rukayat laughed bitterly. "Did school help your parents escape death? You will marry him? That is final." That night, Zainabu cried quietly, so the walls would not hear her weakness. She spoke to the stars, as many before her had done. "Ancestors," she whispered, "if my suffering has meaning, Show me." The next day, the man arrived. He walked with a carved wooden staff, his steps slow but steady. His name was Sadiq. He spoke little, but when he did, his voice was calm, respectful. He did not insult Zainabu. He did not raise his hand. He only said, "I want a woman with a clean heart, not clean clothes." Mama Rukiat accepted the bride price quickly, counting the money twice. The marriage was done without drums, without laughter. Zainabu left the compound without looking back, carrying only a small bag and a heart full of uncertainty. The journey to her husband's home was long. The road changed from rough paths to smooth tar. Zainabu noticed the silence, the tall gates, the way guards bowed slightly as the car passed. Confusion settled in her chest like smoke. When they arrived, she could not speak. Before her stood a wide estate, green and alive, with water dancing in fountains. Servants lined the entrance. A woman bowed and said, "Welcome, madame." Zainabu turned to Sadiq, trembling. "Is this our home?" He smiled gently and removed the dark glasses from his face. His eyes were clear, seeing, alive. "Yes," he said, "and I can see very well." Her knees weakened. He caught her before she fell. "I hid my sight," he continued, "because many love wealth, not people. I needed truth. Your silence spoke louder than words." Tears streamed down Zainabu's face, not tears of pain, but of release. For the first time, someone had looked beyond her rags and seen her soul. As the elders say, the stone rejected by the foot often becomes the one that crowns the doorway. Far away, Mama Rukayet would soon learn that in trying to bury another's destiny, she had unknowingly planted it. This was only the beginning. The elders say that when destiny follows a person, it does not knock loudly. It enters quietly like evening mist. Zainabu did not sleep that first night in the great house. The bed was soft, too soft, and the room smelled of clean sheets and unfamiliar perfumes. Each time she closed her eyes, her body waited for a slap, a shout, an order. None came. Instead, there was silence, deep and respectful, the kind of silence that listens. Before dawn, she rose out of habit and knelt beside the bed, unsure of what to do next. In her old life, this was the hour of sweeping, of lighting firewood, of preparing food she would never eat. Here, the house was already awake in a different way. Somewhere far off, water flowed gently. A clock ticked like a patient heart. She wrapped her shawl tighter around her shoulders and stepped into the corridor. Her feet sank into thick carpet. She froze, afraid she had done something wrong. A woman appeared middle-aged, with kind eyes and a soft voice. "Good morning, madam," she said, bowing slightly. "Madam." The word struck Zainabu like thunder. She looked behind her, certain the woman was speaking to someone else. "Me?" she asked faintly. The woman smiled. "Yes, you. My name is Aisha. I am the housekeeper. Please come. Breakfast is almost ready." Zainabu followed her slowly, her heart racing. In the dining room, a long table stood covered with dishes she had only seen through windows before. Bread still warm, fruits cut neatly, tea steaming gently. She stood at the doorway, unsure where to sit. Sadiq entered moments later, dressed simply, no glasses, no cane. He nodded at her with calm familiarity. "Good morning, Zainabu. Did you sleep at all?" She shook her head. "I did not know how. That will change," he said, "but only at your pace." They ate quietly. No one rushed her. No one watched her plate. When she finished, food still remained. That alone nearly broke her. After breakfast, Sadiq told her, "Today you will rest. Tomorrow we will talk about what you want." What you want? The word sounded foreign, almost dangerous. Wants had never belonged to her. Days passed gently, like healing rain. Zainabu learned the rhythms of the house. She was not ordered to work, but she helped where she wished, slowly unlearning fear. At night, she and Sadiq talked. He told her of his childhood, of poverty, of the man who once gave him a scholarship when no one else would. "That kindness saved my life," he said. "I promised the ancestors I would not forget." One evening, as they sat under the veranda watching the sky burn orange, Zainabu finally asked the question that had lived in her chest. "Why did you choose me, truly?" Sadiq looked at her for a long moment. "Because when my man observed you, you gave your last food away. Because you were beaten but did not become cruel. Because hardship did not rot your heart. Wealth can be built. Character cannot." Tears slipped down her cheeks. For the first time, her suffering had a witness. Far away, Mama Rukiat was enjoying praise. She told neighbors how she had arranged Zainabu's future. "That blind man will teach her humility," she boasted, sipping tea beneath the mango tree. Her daughters laughed, imagining Zainabu washing clothes endlessly. On the fourth day, a black car arrived at Mama Rukiat's gate. The driver stepped out, polished and calm, holding a thick envelope. "Delivery for Madame Rukiat," he said. She opened it carelessly. Inside lay an invitation card, heavy and bright. Her smile froze. The pictures stared back at her like spirits returned from the dead. Zainabu glowing. Zainabu adorned. Zainabu standing beside Sadiq, eyes open, powerful. The neighborhood gathered quickly. Whispers turned to shouts. "Billionaire? Not blind. Is this not the girl you called useless?" Mama Rukiat's knees weakened. The ground felt unsteady. In one moment, her pride collapsed like a mud wall in rain. Shame wrapped around her shoulders. That night, she did not sleep. The faces of her cruelty returned to her uninvited. Back at the estate, Zainabu stood before a mirror, dressed in a simple gown, chosen by herself. She no longer felt like an intruder in her own life. Yet her heart remained soft, not hardened by victory. "Tomorrow," Sadiq said gently, "we visit your old home. Not for revenge." "For what, then?" she asked. "For closure," he replied. Zainabu nodded slowly. "The elders say that true wealth is not in gold, but in the freedom to forgive without forgetting." And as the moon rose quietly over the estate, Zainabu understood that her story was no longer about survival. It was about becoming. "The child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth," whispered the winds through the mango leaves outside Vanessa's window. In the soft twilight, she sat alone, the silken folds of her gown brushing against the marble floor. Yet her mind wandered back to the small, dark kitchen where her life had been measured in cold water and bitter words. How strange it was, she thought, that the same hands that once scrubbed floors now rested gently on a golden rail overlooking fountains and gardens, the scent of orange blossoms curling through the air. "Why did he choose me?" she murmured under her breath, voice trembling like the first drop of rain on parched soil. Emeka's calm eyes had spoken more than words ever could. They saw the honesty in her silence, the courage in her brokenness, and the truth in her spirit. Vanessa recalled the morning Angela had forced her into the car, her rage bubbling like the volcanic rivers of her ancestors' stales, yet it had been Emaka's steady presence that anchored her trembling soul. Outside, the courtyard shimmered with golden light, servants moved with quiet purpose. Yet Vanessa noticed none of the luxury distracted her from the memory of her mother's wrapper, frayed and soaked with suds. She traced its fabric with delicate fingers and remembered the lullabies whispered in a voice now gone. A song of resilience passed from mother to child. Even the smallest drum can wake the lion from sleep. That melody now resonated within her, echoing in the grand hall she had never imagined she would walk. Amicha appeared at the balcony doorway, his shadow tall against the fading sky. "You seem lost in thought," he said, voice soft as the rustle of palm fronds in the evening breeze. Vanessa turned to him, smiling faintly, unsure if her smile could carry the weight of her gratitude. "I was thinking about the life I left behind," she said, eyes glistening with remembered pain. He nodded. "The past shapes us," he said, "but it does not bind us. You are more than what you endured." Vanessa's heart fluttered like a bird startled from its nest. She thought of Angela, the bitter neighbor women, and the small girl who had cried quietly on the cold floor. And she thought of the proverb her grandmother had spoken: "A lioness does not hunt in the morning only to sleep in the evening. She moves with purpose, even through shadows." This night, Vanessa felt the shadows lifting, her spirit growing fierce with quiet determination. The wind carried the scent of jasmine and the distant calls of market vendors fading into memory. Vanessa whispered to herself, "I will not let bitterness rule my life. I will be a light in the dark." She imagined herself in school, surrounded by books and knowledge, her mind blossoming like the baobab tree after the rain. Emeha, standing silently beside her, offered no instruction, only presence, a reminder that she had worth beyond the chores and cruelty she had endured. Amicha spoke again, voice carrying the weight of ancestral calm. "Vanessa, true wealth is not in gold or land. It is in the heart. You possess it already, and that is why I chose you." She bowed her head, tears now falling freely, cleansing, not of sorrow, but of rebirth. "I never knew someone could see me like this," she whispered. "Like I am more than my suffering." He smiled faintly. "You were always more," he said. "And now you have a chance to live fully, not because life gave you favor, but because you carried virtue when none watched." The fountains below sparkled, reflecting light like ancestors smiling upon her journey. Vanessa closed her eyes, letting the cool breeze kiss her cheeks. In that moment she knew the trials were not endings, they were thresholds. She had crossed one, and countless stories of courage awaited her still. Vanessa turned toward the sprawling gardens, each flower a silent witness to her metamorphosis. The house, though magnificent, did not impress her as much as the thought that she had survived, that kindness and resilience had carved her path. She whispered a prayer to the winds, calling upon the spirits of her mother and grandmother. "Guide my steps, and let my heart remain pure, even in abundance." Even as darkness fell over the Maduka estate, Vanessa felt the first flicker of unshakable peace. She understood now that her life was not merely a story of suffering, but a tale that would ripple through generations, a living parable of hope and integrity. And somewhere deep in the night, the mango trees swayed gently, as if nodding in approval of the new queen who had risen from ashes of neglect. "Listen, children of the sun. Listen," the elder's voice echoed in the courtyard of memory. "Who will remember the servant if she is forgotten? Who will sing for the girl whose hands scrubbed floors?" Vanessa imagined hearing these words as a drumbeat within her chest. She remembered the small village home, the clay walls darkened by smoke, the mornings when she rose before dawn and prayed to the ancestors for strength. "I am here," she whispered, answering the call, "and I will not forget who I was." The Maduka estate hummed with quiet opulence. Servants moved like shadows across marble floors. Yet Vanessa felt the rhythms of a simpler life in every step she took. She thought of the marketplace in her old neighborhood, the cries of traders, the laughter of children chasing chickens, the smell of roasted yams. There, she murmured, was the heart of life. Here, she looked around the grand halls, is its promise. Emiha joined her at the balcony once more, leaning slightly on the carved wooden railing. "Do you hear the drums in the distance?" he asked, voice soft. Vanessa tilted her head, listening, but the city beyond the estate lay silent in the evening haze. "I do not," she said. "It is the drum within you," he explained. "It beats with the lessons of yesterday and the hope of tomorrow." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears as memory surged. She saw herself as a girl, small and trembling, carrying bowls of watery soup, hiding bruises beneath long sleeves, bending to obey orders she did not understand. "I thought I was invisible," she said quietly. "But now I see. I was seen all along by those who mattered, and by those who will matter." She looked at Emmy. His face was calm, but his eyes held a quiet fire. "Even in darkness there is light," he whispered. A cool wind swirled through the balcony, lifting her hair and carrying the scent of jasmine and hibiscus from the garden below. Vanessa thought of her mother's words. When the river cuts its path through stone, it is not force but patience that shapes the valley. She realized now that her life had been a river winding through hardship, yet carving a path towards something extraordinary. "Tell me," she said, voice small but firm, "how do I live in this new world without forgetting the old one?" Emiha smiled faintly. "The world will tempt you with gold, with luxury, with admiration," he said. "But you must carry the humility of your beginnings like a talisman. The same hands that scrubbed floors will guide the mighty. The same heart that forgave will teach kings." Vanessa's lips trembled as she whispered, "I am afraid I will forget." He reached for her hand and held it gently. "Fear is natural," he said, "but remember the proverb, the rain does not forget the earth, even if it falls far away. Your spirit is the soil, your memory is the rain. Let both nourish your future." A servant approached quietly, carrying a tray of roasted plantains and steaming pap. Vanessa looked down at the food, the golden light of the candles reflecting on polished wood. In the past, she would have hesitated, unsure if she deserved even a morsel. Now, she understood that abundance was not shameful when shared with wisdom. She took a bite, savoring the taste, not of luxury alone, but of survival transformed. "Do you remember Angela?" she asked, almost to herself. Emika's eyes softened. "Yes. She was part of your journey, not your destiny. The river that washes stones does not stay in the valley. It flows onward." Vanessa nodded, feeling a weight lift. She would not carry bitterness. Her strength lay in forgiveness, in recognition of how far she had come. Night deepened over their estate. Crickets chirped softly in the distant gardens, a lullaby for the lost and found. Vanessa stood alone at the edge of the balcony, hands resting lightly on the rail. The moonlight danced across fountains, marble paths, and flowering shrubs. She whispered a prayer. "Ancestors, guide me. Let me walk in this life with courage, humility, and clarity." She imagined herself teaching other girls, sharing the lessons carved into her soul: patience, endurance, forgiveness, and the courage to rise. Emiha appeared once more, silent as a shadow, yet his presence filled the space with calm. "You will be tested," he said, "not by strangers, but by those who envy you, by those who do not understand your journey. Let your heart be strong and your spirit unwavering." Vanessa nodded. "I understand," she said. "I will not bow to fear or anger. I will rise in truth." Her thoughts drifted to the market square of her old neighborhood, to the mango trees under which she had once played, to the olderish voices weaving wisdom into stories. "I will remember them," she said softly, "and I will honor their lessons in every step I take." The night air carried her words outward, as if the winds themselves promised to keep her oath. Amicha stepped closer. "Your life is now a story," he said, "and every day is a page. Write it with honor, with patience, with the knowledge that even in abundance, your roots remain in the soil that nurtured you." Vanessa smiled faintly, feeling the weight of destiny settle gently on her shoulders. "Then let it be a story that inspires, not just for me, but for every girl who scrubs floors and dreams of sunlight." The moon climbed higher, silvering the estate with gentle light. Vanessa's heart beat steadily, a drum signaling courage, hope, and renewal. She knew the days ahead would challenge her, but she also knew the strength that had carried her from a small, broken kitchen into a palace was hers forever. "I am not the girl who wept on cold floors," she said. "I am the daughter of the sun, and my spirit will shine." Below, in the courtyard, the servants moved silently, unaware of the internal victories of their mistress. Vanessa looked down and smiled softly, whispering, "Every life has its lesson, every heart its journey. I carry both now." And in that quiet, moonlit moment, she felt the first true sense of peace, knowing that resilience and virtue were the treasures no wealth could buy, the inheritance of her soul, and the legacy she would leave. Long ago, in the land where rivers spoke and trees whispered secrets, there was a girl who bore the weight of sorrow like a river carrying stones. The elder's voice began echoing in Vanessa's memory. She remembered the smell of smoke in her childhood home, the taste of dry maize porridge, and the harsh laughter that punctuated her days. Even in the shadow of despair, the voice continued, "The heart that remains steadfast will find its dawn." Vanessa felt those words settle deep within her chest. The next morning, the Maduka estate seemed to hum with expectation. Vanessa awoke to the scent of frangipane and the soft cooing of doves perched on marble balconies. She dressed in a simple gown of deep green, her hands brushing against the silk as if testing reality itself. Emiha waited by the breakfast table, a quiet presence that made her pulse steady. He did not speak, yet his calm radiated like the early morning sun. "Do you sleep well here?" he asked softly, breaking the silence. Vanessa paused, considering the weight of his words. "I sleep differently," she said, "but I feel the same fears I felt before. Only now, the walls are gold and the floor is marble. Yet my heart remembers the clay and the smoky mishanat. Remembering is the first step to wisdom," he said. "Do not let comfort erase the lessons of hardship. The soil that shaped you will always nourish you." Vanessa recalled the marketplace of her youth, the cries of traders, the scuffle of goats, the laughter of children chasing one another through dust and sunlight. She saw herself offering her last piece of yam to a beggar, or tying her stepsister's torn wrapper even when she felt the sting of exhaustion. "I have carried these memories like talismans," she whispered, "and now I must learn to walk forward without losing them." Emiha poured tea, dark and fragrant, into 2 small cups. He offered one to Vanessa. "Life is like tea," he said, "bitter and sweet, calm and stormy, but always to be savored with patience." Vanessa sipped carefully, feeling the warmth spread through her chest. She imagined herself standing in her old kitchen, the smoke stinging her eyes, and knew she had survived that world. Now, she was learning the rhythm of a new one, a place of quiet wealth and silent expectation. The ancestors watch, he continued, and they whisper to those who listen. They say, do not seek to impress, but to endure. Do not seek to dominate, but to understand. Vanessa nodded, feeling the weight of history in every word. She had endured injustice, scorn, and hunger. She had forgiven those who hurt her. Now, understanding awaited. Later that day, a messenger arrived bearing a woven basket of tropical fruits and a note sealed with gold ink. Vanessa opened it carefully. The note read to the daughter who carries her past in her hands and heart. May you find courage in the smallest acts and strength in every kindness you give. An elder of the West. Vanessa's lips trembled as she traced the words with her fingers. Even far from her village, the voice of her ancestors had found her. Emiha watched her quietly. They speak to those who are ready, he said. Vanessa's thoughts wandered to Angela and the neighbors, to the days of scorn and derision. I do not wish revenge, she whispered, but I wish to honor the path that led me here, Imeshana. True power is not in goal, but in the heart that refuses to break, the spirit that chooses compassion over bitterness. The sun climbed higher, casting golden light over the estate gardens. Vanessa walked among the flowering hibiscus and bougainvillea, feeling the texture of leaves beneath her fingertips. I am learning, she said aloud, to see beauty in all things, even in those that once caused me pain. My life is not only mine, it carries the echoes of all who shaped me. Emiha smiled faintly. And soon, he said, others will walk this path with you, learning the same truths. A bird sang from a nearby mango tree, its song weaving through the breeze. Vanessa imagined the small birds of her village chirping at sunrise, chasing crumbs, and gathering twigs. She laughed softly. The world has changed, yet some things remain. The rhythm of life, the voice of the earth, the whisper of ancestors, they are the same, even in marble halls. Emeha reached for her hand again, warmth and reassurance in his touch. Your journey is not complete, he said, but each step you take with courage and humility writes a story that will endure beyond these walls. As evening approached, Vanessa stood at the balcony once more. The fountains glistened under lantern light, reflecting stars in the garden's pools. She felt the pulse of the land, the quiet heartbeat of generations. I carry them all, she whispered. The village, my parents, my mistakes, my lessons. I will honor them by living fully, by being kind, and by teaching others to rise above hardship. Emiha joined her silently, looking out over the estate. This is your time, he said. But remember, time is a river. Flow with it wisely. Night fell gently, and Vanessa lit a small candle by her bedside. She held it carefully, imagining the flicker as a miniature sun in her hands. Even in darkness, she whispered, there is light if I carry it with me. Even in silence, the voice of truth can be heard. She thought of the girls in a village who swept floors, who hid bruises beneath sleeves, who dreamed of a life beyond hardship. I will tell them, she said softly, that the river may be long, but it will reach the sea. Emiha watched her from the doorway, silent but present, as if guarding the moment. Vanessa's thoughts drifted once more to her ancestors, to the elders who spoke in riddles and stories, to the wisdom that had been whispered across generations. She understood now that wealth could not teach patience, nor power replace humility. Only memory, courage, and kindness could shape a soul capable of enduring greatness. As she lay down, the candlelight casting gentle shadows across her room, Vanessa whispered one final prayer. Ancestors, guide me. Let me honor the past, embrace the present, and walk boldly into the future. Let my life be a story worth telling." The night carried her words outward, as if the winds themselves promised to carry them to every corner of her world. "Tell me, child," the wind seemed to whisper. "Do you know who you are?" Vanessa paused by the balcony, her eyes tracing the paths of the fountains below. The water danced in golden arcs, reflecting the lanterns like stars fall into earth. "I am learning," she said aloud, "to be more than a girl swept into sorrow, more than one who served without recognition. I am Vanessa, and my heart remembers." "Yes, Vanessa," the wind replied, soft and coaxing. "Your heart remembers, your hands remember, your eyes remember." She nodded slowly, feeling the rhythm of the words like the drumbeats she had once heard at festivals in her village. Each repetition struck a chord, reminding her of stories told by firelight, of elders' voices rising and falling in cadence. That morning, the estate was alive with servants preparing the gardens for a welcoming ceremony. Vanessa moved quietly among them, observing without commanding, learning the unspoken patterns of a world she was only beginning to inhabit. She noticed how the cook, Mama Chidi, hummed as she arranged yams and plantains, how the gardener, Te, spoke softly to the hibiscus, coaxing blooms from buds. Even in opulence, Vanessa thought, there is labor, patience, and care. Emiha approached, his presence steady, and asked, "Do you feel ready for today?" Vanessa hesitated. "I feel aware of my place in this story, and also aware that today others will watch me. Will they see my courage, my dignity, or only my fear?" Emiha smiled faintly. "Those who understand see. Those who do not will not matter." As the guests began to arrive, Vanessa greeted them politely, her voice steady. "Welcome," she said to each one, remembering the greetings her mother had taught her, the bows of respect, the words of kindness even when the heart trembled. A merchant from the city nodded, an elder from the village smiled knowingly, a young girl whispered, "You shine like the sun," and Vanessa's pulse quickened. She remembered the long hours of servitude, the cold water on her skin, the harsh words that had once defined her life. "Child, do you know the power of humility?" the wind seemed to call. Vanessa closed her eyes. "Yes," she whispered, "it is not weakness. It is strength dressed quietly." She felt the rhythm of those words, repeated as the elders had repeated proverbs, patience, endurance, and honesty woven into syllables. Throughout the ceremony, Vanessa noticed Angela's shadow lurking at the edges, her expression hidden behind a forced smile. Cindy and Ella followed, giggling nervously, unsure of how to behave in the presence of wealth and dignity. Vanessa met their eyes for a moment, offering neither malice nor pity. Instead, she nodded once, acknowledging their existence, and walked forward with measured grace. "Do not forget where you came from," the wind called again, "for your roots hold the stories of who you are." Vanessa remembered her village, the small clay houses, the dusty streets, the laughter of children chasing one another, and the aroma of roasted maize. Her heart swelled. She realized now that wealth could not erase her past. It could only amplify the strength she had already cultivated. Guests admired the fountains, the marble floors, the grand halls of the estate. Yet Vanessa felt connected to something deeper. "Beauty is not in the stone or the silk," she murmured, "but in the hands that nurture, the hearts that forgive, and the spirits that endure." Imeha, watching quietly from a distance, nodded in agreement, understanding that her voice carried a rare truth. Later, Vanessa spoke with an elder who had traveled from the north, a storyteller known for weaving wisdom into every tale. He smiled kindly and said, "Child, you carry the rhythm of the ancestors. Even in sorrow, you danced. Even in pain, you spoke truth. Remember this always. The stories we tell are not only for ourselves, but for the generations who follow. Vanessa's eyes brightened, and she whispered a quiet thank you, bowing in respect. By midday, the air was filled with laughter, conversation, and the aroma of spiced yam and roasted fish. Vanessa moved through it with quiet confidence, offering words of warmth to each guest, listening to their tales, sharing moments of lightness and reflection. She remembered the lessons of her youth, that kindness, even when unnoticed, bore fruit, that patience, even under scorn, cultivated dignity. Emiha joined her at the veranda once more as the sun dipped low, painting the gardens in amber light. "Do you see now?" he asked gently. "The world is wide, yet you find your place within it." Vanessa nodded. "I see, and I also feel. I feel the echoes of those who came before, the voices of ancestors, the lessons whispered in shadows and sunlight. I feel responsibility, yes, but also possibility. I am ready to walk forward." "Forward?" Emiha repeated, his voice like a quiet drumbeat. "Yes, forward," Vanessa agreed. Together, they watched the sunset, the fountains reflecting the fading light, the flowers closing for the night, and the estate settling into quiet serenity. The wind moved through the trees, carrying soft murmurs that seemed like ancestral blessings. Vanessa reflected on the words repeated by the wind. "Your heart remembers. Your hands remember. Your eyes remember." She realized that these were not merely echoes of her past, but keys to her future. Each step, each choice, each act of kindness and patience was a thread in a tapestry that stretched beyond her own life, touching those she had yet to meet, those who would follow her story. As night fell, lanterns glimmered like stars across the estate, and Vanessa stood once more on the balcony. She breathed deeply, feeling the rhythm of life in her chest, in the pulse of water in the fountains, in the voices of guests now laughing in the halls. She whispered softly, "I will carry my past and shape my future. I will honor those who suffered before me and give hope to those who will come after." The wind carried her words outward as if confirming her resolve. And though the night was dark, Vanessa felt a light within her chest, a warmth that no wealth could buy, a fire lit by endurance, humility, and love. "This," she whispered to herself, "is the beginning of the life I was always meant to live." Long ago, before the first rains fell upon the lands of the people, the elders said that the spirits watched closely those who were pure in heart. They whispered, "A person's true path is not written in gold, but in deeds that honor ancestors." Vanessa remembered these words as she stepped into the grand hall that evening. The glow of lanterns reflecting off polished floors, casting shadows that danced like ancient spirits on the walls. "Vanessa, come," called Emiha gently. His voice held calm authority, as though it carried both the weight of the world and the lightness of a bird in flight. Vanessa followed, feeling the rhythm of the space, the echoes of ancestors in the corners, the silent nods of wisdom from the pillars that framed the estate like guardians. "Do you feel the presence?" she whispered to herself. She could almost hear the voices of her mother, her village elders, the women who had taught her patience yes, the walls seemed to reply. "We are here. We watch, and we honor those who walk with dignity." The ceremony of welcoming guests to their home continued, a blend of modern opulence and ancestral ritual. Vanessa moved among the attendees, greeting them with a bow, a smile, a careful word. Every gesture was a thread in a tapestry that stretched from her village to this mansion, from the stories whispered by firelight to the splendor of chandeliers and marble floors. Imaha approached a group of elders from the northern province. Vanessa listened as they spoke in low tones, words carrying weight and wisdom. "This child," one elder murmured, "has endured. She has walked through shadows and emerges with her soul intact." Vanessa felt a warmth rise in her chest. Though she had suffered under Angela's cruelty, though she had feared the world outside her village, she understood now. Endurance was a seed planted by ancestors, waiting to bloom. Later, in the quieter part of the estate, Vanessa spoke with a storyteller named Baba Kofi. His beard was long, his eyes sharp, and his hands moved as he recited tales of tricksters, heroes, and spirits. "Child," he said, "you carry the mark of the ancestral path. You are not just a girl elevated by wealth, you are a keeper of stories, a witness to truth, a bearer of dignity." Vanessa nodded, swallowing emotion. She felt the rhythm of his words in her heartbeat, the cadence of a world older than her own life, teaching her to see and understand beyond what eyes could measure. As the evening deepened, Vanessa wandered to the veranda where fountains glimmered like liquid gold. The stars above twinkled, mirrors of the stories she had heard as a child, the myths of the first rains, the laughter of spirits, the songs of women weaving wisdom into every movement. "I am here," she whispered softly, "and I am ready to live fully, to honor my past, and to shape what comes next." Emiha joined her, standing quietly. "Do you ever fear the life you didn't choose?" he asked. Vanessa conceded, her eyes following the paths of the fountains. "I fear the unknown," she admitted, "but I no longer fear myself. I know now that every trial, every sorrow was a teacher, and I carry the lessons of my ancestors in each step." He nodded. "Yes, and in your heart you carry more than just lessons. You carry power, not the power of wealth, but the power of truth, of kindness, of patience. You have endured what many could not, and yet you have remained upright. That is rare, Vanessa." The wind moved through the gardens as if echoing his words. Vanessa closed her eyes and felt the pulse of life in the estate, the laughter of guests, the whispers of servants, the quiet hum of lamps. She imagined the spirits of her village watching, nodding in approval, and she felt a surge of confidence. "I am no longer only a servant of sorrow," she whispered. "I am a woman of choice, a daughter of the earth, a keeper of dignity." Suddenly, a young girl approached her, holding a small basket of fresh flowers. "Madam," she said shyly, "these are for you. My mother says you are brave, and brave people should have flowers." Vanessa smiled, bending to receive the basket. The gesture, small and unassuming, carried the weight of stories passed down through generations, the lessons of respect, kindness, and recognition of truth. "Yes, bravery," Vanessa murmured, touching the petals gently. She looked out at the gardens where hibiscus and marigold danced in the evening breeze. Bravery is not absence of fear, it is walking forward in spite of it. She felt Amaka's hand on her shoulder. "And together," he said softly, "we honored the path and the stories that brought us here." As night fully settled, the guests departed, leaving the estate in serene quiet. Vanessa moved through the halls, each step resonating like a heartbeat, each room a reminder of her journey. She paused by a large mirror in the hallway, staring at her reflection. Gone was the girl afraid of cold water, hungry stomachs, and cruel words. In her place stood a woman shaped by endurance, kindness, and integrity. She whispered a prayer, thanking the ancestors, her mother, and the spirits of the land for guiding her. "May I always walk with truth." May I always honor the hands that fed me, the hearts that guided me, and the souls that watched over me." Emiha entered quietly, standing beside her. "You have done more than survive," he said. "Vanessa, you have learned to live fully, with eyes open, heart steady, and spirit strong. That is the gift of the stories you carry." Vanessa nodded. "And I will tell them," she said, "to those who come after me, so they know that even in darkness, light is remembered, and that even in sorrow, dignity can bloom." Together, they stood in silence, the estate bathed in moonlight, fountains whispering ancestral songs, and the wind carrying their quiet declarations outward. Vanessa felt at peace. She was no longer defined by cruelty or fear, but by endurance, wisdom, and the rhythm of life itself. Long ago, the elders had said, "A heart that endures, a hand that serves, and a soul that remembers shall rise beyond measure." Vanessa felt their words wrap around her, binding past, present, and future in a tapestry of unseen threads. She had been beaten, silenced, and doubted, but now she was seen, honored, and ready to embrace the life she was always meant to live. The elders of the North once said, "A tree does not grow to the sky without first planting its roots in the soil of patience." Vanessa remembered the proverb as she moved through the corridors of Muka Estate, each polished floorboard echoing softly beneath her feet. She had been planted in hardship, nurtured in sorrow, yet now, like the tree of the proverb, her roots had taken hold, and her branches reached toward a life she had once only imagined. Emiha followed her quietly, his presence steady like the slow, deliberate rhythm of a drum at dusk. "Do you ever feel unworthy of all this?" he asked, his voice low but resonant, carrying the weight of respect. Vanessa glanced at him, noting how the moonlight shimmered off the bronze of his skin, reflecting the stories of generations embedded in their shared land. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but I remind myself that survival is not the measure of worth, it is how one carries themselves after enduring the storm." The garden outside shimmered under the silver glow of moonlight, hibiscus petals glinting like tiny lanterns, a chorus of crickets providing their evening melody. Vanessa breathed deeply, letting the scent of the earth, the flowers, and the distant river fill her senses. This estate, so different from the dusty streets and small huts of her village, seemed to hum with a quiet intelligence, as if it remembered every step of her journey. She paused beside a small fountain where water cascaded over stone lions, their eyes carved wide and knowing. "Water," she whispered to herself, "always finds a path, even around the heaviest rocks." Imea smiled gently at her reflection in the fountain. "And so do hearts," he said softly. "Even when crushed by cruelty, they find a way to bloom." The evening grew deeper, and Venezia found herself in the library, a space filled with books and scrolls, each containing wisdom of the past and guidance for the future. She ran her fingers along the spines, feeling the pulse of stories long told, stories of kings and queens, tricksters and spirits, hunters and farmers, and the lessons they carried. Baba Kofi's words returned to her mind. "A keeper of stories carries the souls of many in one heart." Vanessa, Imaha said, leaning against the doorway, "Do you know why I chose to bring you here, beyond testing hearts?" Vanessa shook her head, her curiosity piqued. "Because," he said, "the world needs those who have walked through shadow and remain honest, those who understand suffering but do not harden their hearts. You have been tested and yet remain true. That truth is more valuable than gold." Vanessa thought of Angela, her stepsisters, the village whispers, and the years she had spent in silence, and she realized that the estate, the wealth, and even Imaha himself were but a stage for a larger lesson. The strength of a pure heart could transform not only one life but the lives of those around it. "Then I must be careful," she murmured, careful not to let pride or bitterness take root. Emesha nadad. Yes, but also remember, humility is not weakness. It is recognition of one's place in the story of the world and the willingness to grow alongside it. Vanessa smiled faintly, feeling the truth of his words sink deep into her spirit. Later, as they walked through the expansive gardens, Vanessa noticed a small cluster of children playing near the fountain. Their laughter rang bright against the quiet of the estate, reminiscent of the village sounds she had known as a child. One little boy approached her, offering a carved wooden bird, freshly painted with the red and gold of the sun. "This is for you," he said, shyly. "Mama says you are brave." Vanessa knelt, accepting the gift. "Thank you," she whispered. "I will keep it always." Emiha watched from nearby, a proud glint in his eyes. "You see?" he said quietly. "Even the smallest hearts recognize what is true, and in them, the lessons of ancestors continue." Vanessa looked out at the horizon, where the first hints of dawn brushed the sky with pale gold. She felt a deep serenity, the kind that comes only from understanding one's journey and embracing it fully. She turned to Emiha. "Do you think people will ever understand the journey it took to arrive here?" she asked softly. "Some will," he said. "Others may never see beyond the surface. But what matters is that you walk with integrity, carrying the stories, the lessons, and the kindness that brought you here. That is the true measure of legacy." As they entered the grand dining hall for a quiet supper, Vanessa felt the weight of her past melt, replaced by a quiet strength. She remembered the orphan days, the cold floors, the harsh words, and the hunger that gnawed at her. And she understood now. Those trials were not just suffering. They were preparation, planting seeds that would bloom into wisdom, compassion, and dignity. After supper, she wandered to a balcony overlooking the estate. The fountains below reflected the rising sun, golden and liquid, casting patterns that seemed alive, telling stories older than memory. She whispered to the morning air, "I am here, and I am ready to live in truth. I am ready to honor those who came before me and guide those who will come after." Emmy had joined her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "And so you will," he said, "because your heart is strong, your spirit unbroken, and your path guided by stories older than time itself. You are ready." Vanessa looked out at the estate, the gardens, and the distant hills beyond. For the first time in her life, she felt completely whole, as though every sorrow, every test, every silent tear had been necessary to lead her to this place. The spirits of her ancestors, the teachings of elders, and the memories of village life merged with the reality of her present, forming a harmony that echoed in her very being. She turned to Emiha, eyes bright. "Let us live with purpose," she said. "Let us honor the past and shape the future together." Imishanadad, a silent promise passing between them. The estate was quiet, yet alive with the rhythm of life, the echoes of stories, and the lessons of enduring hearts. Vanessa felt the pulse of the earth beneath her feet, the whispers of ancestors in the breeze, and the steady heartbeat of a future shaped by courage, kindness, and wisdom. And in that moment, she understood fully. Life is a story, and each chapter, no matter how shadowed or bright, is guided by the truths we carry, the hearts we touch, and the spirits that watch over us. Who will speak of truth if the heart hides behind fear? The elders' voices echoed in Vanessa's mind, and she answered silently, "I will." The courtyard was quiet, save for the distant call of a drum from the village below. Vanessa walked slowly, her fingers brushing the cool leaves of the hibiscus bushes, remembering the days she had carried hunger like a secret, hidden beneath borrowed smiles. Emiha followed his presence like a shadow that neither stifled nor demanded, simply steady, grounding. "Vanessa," he said softly, "do you remember the first time you saw the village children playing by the river?" She nodded, recalling how she had longed to join them but had been forbidden. "Now," he continued, "look at them. Your heart guided you here, and they can sense it. Kindness always leaves a mark." Vanessa's lips curved into a quiet smile. "Even when unseen, even when unnoticed, love shapes the world," she murmured. The sun began to rise, spilling gold across the Muka estate. Vanessa's eyes traced the fountains below, each lion's head glimmering as though it guarded secrets older than memory. She felt the weight of her past, heavy yet instructive, like a drumbeat that shaped rhythm from chaos. "I am no longer just a survivor," she thought. "I am a storyteller, a keeper of lessons, and a witness to the ways of heart." Inside the estate, the servants moved with quiet grace, arranging meals with care, their movements precise yet reverent. Vanessa observed, noticing how every gesture, no matter how small, carried intention. She turned to Emmy. "How did you come to understand so much about people?" she asked. His smile was slight but knowing. "I have watched long before I entered their lives," he said. "I have seen those who are honest in poverty, generous in scarcity, and courageous in silence. Wisdom is not bought, Vanessa. It is earned in the quiet places of the heart." Vanessa thought of Angela, Cindy, and Ella, the village whispers, and the streets she had once swept. Even cruelty teaches lessons, she reflected. Even suffering plants seeds for future strength. She walked to a window overlooking the horizon, where the hills met the sky, and felt the pulse of the land beneath her feet. A rhythm that connected her to every ancestor who had endured, who had laughed, who had cried, and who had told stories by the fire. Imaha joined her quietly. "Do you feel their presence?" he asked. Vanessa nodded. "I do. Their guidance, their lesson, they live within me." They stood together, the estate silent save for the whisper of the wind through palm fronds. Vanessa realized that her heart, once broken and silenced, now carried not only her story but the echoes of countless others who had walked paths of hardship and emerged with dignity. The day deepened, and Vanessa moved to the library once more. She ran her fingers over the spines of books that held histories, folk tales, and ancestral knowledge. "These stories are not just words," she thought. "They are the bridges between generations, the lessons of the past shaping the choices of the present." She pulled a volume of local proverbs and read aloud, "He who learns from the paths of others walks without stumbling." Emiha listened, silently nodding. Later, in the quiet of the drawing room, Vanessa reflected on her transformation. She thought of her village home, of the dusty roads, the mango tree where she once hid from the sun, and the pot of pap she had stirred in silence. "All of this brought me here," she acknowledged. "The estate, the wealth, even the unexpected love. These are the harvest of endurance, humility, and honesty." A knock came at the door. A young boy entered carrying a small bundle of hand-carved animals. "For the children of the village," he said, placing the bundle on the table. Vanessa's heart swelled. She realized that true power did not lie in wealth or status, but in the ability to give, to uplift, and to preserve the lessons of kindness for generations yet to come. Emiha stood beside her, hands clasped behind his back. "You see," he said quietly, "even the smallest gestures ripple across the world. The heart that chooses generosity echoes through eternity." Vanessa nodded. feeling the truth of his words settle like a warm ember in her chest. As dusk fell, she returned to the balcony overlooking the fountain. The water reflected the ember glow of lanterns, each ripple carrying the memory of her journey. Vanessa whispered to the evening breeze, "I am here, and I carry all I have learned. I will not forget. I will share. I will honor the past and shape the future." Emiha joined her, and together they watched as fireflies danced over the gardens, tiny lanterns of hope and perseverance. Vanessa felt the pulse of life in the estate, the heartbeat of the land, and the rhythm of countless stories converge. She understood fully that her journey, though filled with trials, had been guided by wisdom, resilience, and the unseen hands of ancestors. "Tomorrow," Emiha said softly, "we begin to share these lessons more widely. The village, the children, the people who have yet to understand the power of truth and courage, they will learn through us." Vanessa's eyes shone with determination. "Yes," she said, "we will plant seeds, watch them grow, and tell the stories that must be told." And so, under the golden light of the setting sun, Vanessa felt the fullness of her story, not as a tale of sorrow, but as a testament to endurance, love, and the enduring power of the heart. The estate, the wealth, the legacy, they were but vessels. Her heart, her courage, and her truth were the river that would carry these lessons forward. As it had always carried the stories of Africa, she leaned on Emeka's shoulder, feeling the quiet strength of shared purpose, and whispered, "Together, we will honor all who came before and guide those who follow." The wind rustled through the palm leaves, a soft song of continuity, reminding her that the stories of the past are never truly lost. They live in hearts willing to remember, to teach, and to love. Long ago, in a village where the wind whispered secrets to the trees and the river sang songs to those who would listen, there lived a young woman named Vanessa. She had endured storms of cruelty, rivers of sorrow, and forests of neglect. Yet the spirits of the ancestors watched over her, unseen but ever present, guiding her through paths others could not see. That day, as she stepped into the grand halls of the Maduka estate, her heart trembled like the drum beats in the village square during harvest festival. "This is the place," whispered the elders in her mind, "where the truth of patience and virtue shall be revealed." Amicha approached quietly, the soft soles of his shoes making no sound upon the polished floors. He did not boast. He did not raise his voice. He only extended a hand, simple and steady, as though the weight of the world had no power over his calm. Vanessa, eyes wide, felt a strange warmth, like the sun filtering through the morning mist onto a dewy field of yam. She had believed she was powerless, yet here she was, a queen in a palace of her own soul, even before the kingdom had acknowledged her. The servants, like shadows in the afternoon, moved gracefully, offering silent respect. "You are safe now," Amiche murmured, his voice low and firm, yet tender as the reeds along the riverbank. "The world that sought to crush you cannot reach you here." Vanessa's lips trembled. "But how can I repay such kindness? How can I live in such abundance without forgetting the suffering?" Amicha shook his head gently. "You repay not with wealth, but with truth. Walk in honesty. Speak with courage. Hold your dignity as you have always done." And the elders would say, in the echoes of the village drums, that Vanessa remembered every pang, every humiliation, every stolen meal, not to grieve, but to grow. She learned that strength is not forged in ease, but in the crucible of adversity. She had shared yams with those who had nothing, comforted those who had no comfort, and endured scorn without losing her heart. These were her offerings, invisible yet invaluable, as the ancestors themselves nodded in approval from unseen realms. That night, under the silvery gaze of the moon, Vanessa wandered the palace gardens. The fountains sang in whispers of gold, flowers leaned in reverence, and the wind carried messages of praise. She paused before a statue of a lion, ancient and regal, and felt her own courage mirrored in its carved eyes. Amicia approached from behind, silent, yet his presence was a shield. "Do you see now?" he asked softly. "You were never alone. Even in your darkest moments, the spirits guided you, the ancestors protected you, and your own heart remained unbroken. That is why you are worthy, Vanessa. That is why you are seen." Tears, unbidden, rolled down her cheeks, not of sorrow, but of release, of triumph, of a joy that had been long denied. She thought of Angela, of Cindy and Ella, of the neighbors who had laughed, whispered, and scorned. Yet even in their ignorance, Vanessa's spirit remained generous. She would not gloat. She would not curse. She would offer mercy. The gift that outshines all revenge. She prepared a small offering, a gesture of reconciliation, returning to the village not to prove herself, but to heal the lingering shadows of the past. The people gathered, whispering and wide-eyed, as Vanessa approached with measured steps. She spoke with calm dignity. "I have returned," she said, "not to claim vengeance, but to show that kindness, patience, and truth endure beyond cruelty. May we all learn from the journeys the ancestors have set before us." Angela fell to her knees, her face wet with tears of shame and awakening. Cindy and Ella looked on, startled, their laughter silenced by the weight of recognition. The village elder nodded from afar, approving the lesson passed down from heart to heart. Back in the Maduka estate, Vanessa and Amicia stood together on the balcony, watching the sun rise over sprawling gardens and fountains that glittered like the wisdom of the ancients. "Will it always be this way?" Vanessa asked quietly. Amicia smiled, holding her hand as though the bond between them was forged in eternity itself. "It will be as it should, child of patience. Your life is a tapestry, woven with care, with resilience, and with the blessings of those who came before us. And now your story will become the story of many who follow." And so the elders would say, in hushed tones, by the fireside, that Vanessa, once a girl of sorrow, became a woman of light. She embraced her education, her community, and her heart fully, teaching that the path through suffering is never wasted when walked with integrity. She honored the spirits, nurtured the land, and loved without expectation. Amicia, quiet and steadfast, became both partner and witness to her life's unfolding, reminding all who observed that true wealth lies not in gold, but in the constancy of heart and the courage to remain upright. And thus ends the tale. Yet, like the river, it continues to flow, carrying lessons, laughter, and legacy from one generation to the next. The children of the village hear the story, eyes wide, hearts learning that no matter the shadows that darken youth, patience, truth, and mercy are the lanterns that illuminate destiny. Vanessa's name is whispered in awe, not for the riches she inherited, but for the soul she never surrendered, the dignity she never lost, and the love she allowed to grow even where it had once been crushed. And so, in every household, around every fire, her story is told again and again, reminding all who listen that the spirits see, the ancestors remember, and those who endure with a true heart shall always rise. Long ago, in the dusty village of Nkwazi, there lived a young girl named Kia, whose parents had vanished like morning mist after a sudden fire. She stayed under the care of her stepmother, who wore smiles sharper than thorned acacia branches. Each day, Kiamaka swept the courtyard, cooked the porridge, and mended ragged clothes, while her stepsisters lounged in silks, laughing at her toil. One evening, The wind whispered through the mango trees that a suitor had come, seeking a humble bride, one who would not see with pride, nor judge with wealth. "A blind man," her stepmother cackled, eyes glinting like a hawk's. Yet the spirits of the elders murmured secrets in the rustling leaves. Not all that appears poor is empty, and not all that seems blind is without sight. Kiamaka's heart trembled, caught between fear and the quiet hope that destiny might be wiser than cruelty. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows, and the air thickened with a promise that the morrow would reveal hidden truths. Do not let Kiamaka's courage pass unnoticed. Share the tale with your kin and neighbors. Whisper the lesson through the village paths, and carry its wisdom in your heart. Turn your ear to the stories yet to come, for each dawn brings another thread of fate, and every tale you embrace teaches the spirit to see beyond what the eyes behold.